our first topic today. Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki made a successful appeal to the Iraqi court to order a recount of votes for the recent parliamentary elections due to allegations of widespread fraud. Election results showed former Prime Minister Ayad Allawi with a slim lead. Will this recount signal an end to the Maliki government and a shift in U.S.-Iraqi relations? I'll start with you, Mike.
Well, at least the outgoing leader is staying in power for some period of transition while they sort this out. You know, any peace in Iraq is a good peace, and with the U.S. talking about trying to scale down occupation this summer, I think it's good that they're at least holding it together while they go through the process of appeal. And so I think that in and of itself is a positive sign.
But we still have all the corruption, and so,
oh, yes,
I mean, really, what's a recount going to do?
Basically, it ends up being kind of a Sunni-Shia kind of rift there. And the Sunnis still want to maintain power, but because the Shia actually outnumbered them, you've got that brewing constantly in the background of the government. So,
well, the Maliki government, I mean, both Ayad Allawi and Maliki are both Shiites.
Yes, but the infrastructure below them, you know, the people that supposedly get the job done, the ministers, and those tend to be Sunni jobs. They're trying to replace them and make it a little more equitable for, you know, the population. The bigger issue is really the violence has not calmed down that much in Baghdad. There's still bombings. It's still not a place that most people would want to vacation. And that's not going to go away because the country, for the most part, is still broken up into three tribal areas. You know, the Shia in the south, the Sunni in the middle, and the Kurds in the north. And they still have, you know, centuries of bad blood between them. So it's a process. Democracy is messy, and especially to an area that has never known democracy. So it is interesting. To me, I thought it showed somebody is thinking on the ground there in terms of the actual people, the Iraqi people, wanting to say, hey, this was not okay, let's clean this up. So that's a good sign.
Which of these two candidates do you think will be the best bet to create some sort of stability there between the two of them?
That's a toughie because they both have, you know, they're both have their own hidden agendas in terms of what's going on, and when people in power tend not to want to give up that power, and so I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as it might be when it works other places.
I think this is a very delicate situation. You know, it's a new country having still early elections, and you need to tread really lightly on this. Barring some obvious evidence of irrefutable election fraud, the only thing that matters is that on election day it appeared that Ayad Allawi was slightly ahead.
Right.
So the best result is just to move forward with that. He ultimately does not have full control. They still have to create a coalition government, and Maliki's people have to be in that to some degree or another. But to reverse it, I think, is to create the worst of both scenarios, because then both sides will feel that it was illegitimate because somebody was the winner on election day and it was taken away from them.
Right.
Best to move forward with the result as it is, however imperfect. And you know, this is mostly about personal disputes. There's still a lot of tribalism and people jockeying for personal power. So I think it's, from our standpoint, it's less important who actually is the prime minister than that they have these elections and that we move on.
One important thing to note is that the prime minister gets to choose the ministers in his government, and the most important minister is the minister of oil.
Granted, but unless you win, unless your coalition, unless your party wins over half of the parliament, you don't really get to do that, because in order to create a coalition with other people, including Maliki's government, so you have to. It's like all parliaments, you know. You have to form a coalition government, and the trade-off on that is it's already prearranged who's going to get all those minister positions. That's the jockeying that occurs in the formation of the coalition government.
I recognize
so that all gets decided.
But it's that is the big thorn. The minister of oil is going to be the big toughie to get past, because that's where all the hard currency flows from. in Iraq.
But it's also comforting that the Iraqi military seems to be getting it together. They took out 2 top al-Qaeda leaders last week with some support from the U.S. military, but it was an Iraqi army program or process. And that's encouraging, because you got to worry that if the people, the terrorists behind upsetting and causing chaos are being let alone, then nothing but chaos will continue to ensue. But the Iraqi army seems to be getting its feet on the ground, seems to be having some success in terms of rooting out al-Qaeda.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add to this is that the instability in Iraq will never begin to abate in a way that was workable for the long term until we deal with the elephant in the room, which is Iran. You know, they are supplying. It's the same problem we have in Afghanistan. They are supplying weaponry. They are doing everything they can to undermine success in both of those countries. And you know, I'm not suggesting that there is there is one answer to Iran, but I am suggesting that until we tackle that, until we deal with that issue in whatever way dealing with that issue actually means, we're never really going to get the kind of long-term success in those 2 countries that we're looking for, because Iran continues to use its influence and its money and its skills, and their kind of black arts, its terrorist skills, to continue to undermine those efforts. And you would still have localized problems in countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. Obviously in Iraq they have the Sunni-Shia problem. But I think that they can ultimately overcome that if somebody isn't priming the pump constantly with weapons and material and training and all the rest.
You know, but speaking of Iran, they have their own problem. They have an illegitimate government of their own, because their election was kind of squashed, in essence, and that's why people were out rebelling. And that there was a huge. There still is a very large, unsettled populace in Iran that it doesn't like what's going on.
That was a missed opportunity for us.
So I got to cut you off, Al. You're too late to the party. We have to move on to our next topic.
I'll bring it up at that.
Just fit it in.